Okay, so I would really rather have a root canal than talk about this man. But apparently we're having an emergency hearing or emergency session with the January 6th hearings tomorrow because some surprising, very important thing has prevented the senators from taking their week off because the hearings weren't supposed to start again until July and continue on. But something has fallen in our lap, and we're having an emergency hearing right now and delaying them leaving DC to take their breaks. So this must be something good. Now, with the emergency hearings and the charts, because of course we're going to look at the charts, right? Um, the hearings are all about Donald Trump and all of his shenanigans with his administration in the office. Um, so we're looking at the chart for the hearing tomorrow to see if we can glean any information about what this bombshell might be. And do understand that astrology does have its limits. So here are some things that, and the only reason I'm doing this right now, because I would rather have a root canal than talk about this man. The reason I'm doing this right now is because this drives home a very important point about chart rulers. Now, I personally do not believe he is Leo rising. I believe that he is 0 Virgo rising. The thing with the 30 degrees and the 0 degrees of signs is they look a lot like each other. There's a blending that's happening because technically there is no 30 and 0. 30 and 0 are at the same point where they're changing over. So you'll get a lot of the preceding sign's qualities with that degree. So for instance, somebody who has 0 degrees of Virgo rising will also have very leonine qualities in their presentation. Somebody with Scorpio, 0 Scorpio rising will also come across as very Libran. So it is entirely possible that all these dramatic showman type things that people see could be attributed to that Leo presence at a 0 Virgo rising. Personally, I say it is because he's a full moon in Sagittarius. He is a natural salesman. He's a used car salesman of the finest degree. That's what he does. He sells things. And this coupled with that flamboyant Mars and Leo, certainly we're going to get a lot of that expression. I don't believe that his chart ruler is the sun. So when you look at a chart, the reason the ascendant matters is the ascendant will give us our chart ruler. I think he's 0 Virgo rising. And with 0 Virgo rising, that's going to give us 8 Cancer as his chart ruler, which notably is in square to his Neptune, which makes him, well, I mean, a little bit delusional, but certainly very, very good at persuading and, stretching the truth to make it fit and to kind of gloss over, well, important details. And this combined with this full moon in Sagittarius and all this Gemini. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole chart delineation with him because I've spent too much of my life previously last year or a couple of years ago going over his chart. But I'm bringing this up because many people disagree and swear he's Leo rising, and I don't think so. So with Virgo rising, his chart ruler is Mercury. Mercury sits in square to his natal Neptune, and this is why it's important. The emergency hearing tomorrow, we have a sun, a brand new moon, a sun-moon conjunction right there on his Mercury involving Neptune. And that makes this emergency hearing much more personal and much more of a direct hit that could literally torpedo everything. This could be the smoking gun with the dead body and the what is it, the camera video and everything else. This could literally be the thing that sinks the ship, this emergency hearing tomorrow, if he's Virgo rising, because that means that his chart ruler is taking a direct hit. Now, if he is not Virgo rising and he is in fact Leo rising, what you would look for are activations to his sun, because the sun is the ruler of Leo. And we're not going to get too much into that because right now we're focusing on the emergency hearing tomorrow that come up out of the blue. And honestly, I'd rather have a root canal than spend more than 5 necessary minutes to discuss this man. All right, so let's take a look at the emergency hearing and see what happens when we put his chart on top of the meeting. So this is the chart for the emergency hearing. Now, on the day and time for the emergency hearing, we're going to have 3 Libra rising. This is the ascendant at 1 p.m. when this meeting takes place. On this day and at that time, we have a new moon in Cancer at the very top of the chart. So whatever this is, it should be very, hugely, wildly important and maybe even larger than life, because this should be visible like across the globe. Now remember, if he's Virgo rising, if he's 0 Virgo rising, he's got a Mercury Neptune square, and Mercury is in Cancer. Well, sweetheart, look at this. This different color. His Mercury sits right here, right? And it's pulling in that new moon. So right here, we know if he is in fact Mercury rising, that new moon on his Mercury, with Mercury as his chart ruler, means whatever this bombshell is that just dropped in Congress's lap is huge and a direct hit, literally a direct torpedo hit on the, already sinking ship that he's on. Now, the reason this is important, right, is because Mercury by itself is a neutral planet. It's a small planet. It's very fleeting. It's very quick. It doesn't carry a lot of punch with it because Mercury, like the moon, moves very, very fast. Mercury, unlike the moon, is not a luminary. Mercury is just a messenger, a courier, a go-between. It doesn't have a lot of oomph or kapow in a chart, depending on what you're using it for. By itself, it doesn't signify a lot of huge things, unless it's your chart ruler. And with this new moon on a chart ruler, on Mercury as a chart ruler, that makes this meeting potentially very significant. If he was not Virgo rising with Mercury as the chart ruler, this actually shouldn't and wouldn't amount to too much in terms of a direct hit where he's concerned. So tomorrow will be a very good litmus test to see how close we are to him actually being Virgo rising, not Leo rising. Okay, because if he were Leo rising, it's that sun in Gemini that we would look for, that would be getting hard hits. That would be the major, the major shots across the bow where he's concerned. But we're not looking at that. We're looking at this emergency hearing. Is very mysterious. Nobody's telling us anything about it. So it's got to be good. This is going to be juicy. Okay, so now with that, also remember from his natal chart, his Mercury squares his natal Neptune in the 2nd house. So his Mercury in Cancer, his chart ruler, sits in his 11th house, and it squares Neptune in his 2nd. He can't hang on to the money. The man hangs on to money like a sieve holds water. But the other thing is, again, he's a salesman, and he's all about the pitch. He's a natural-born hustler. So, for somebody who can't hang on to money, who's a natural-born salesman, typically these types of hustlers, and we all know them, right? They're very, very good at what they do, but they're like a shark. They never get sated or satisfied because they're constantly trying to replace what they just lost. So with the new moon on his Mercury squaring his natal Neptune, assuming that Mercury is the chart ruler and this Mercury-Neptune square is involving his 2nd house, because Neptune would be in 2nd house, this suggests that things, Mercury's documents, so documentation, communication, like hard evidence in writing or actual recorded words that have to do with financial fraud in no uncertain terms, should be front, center, and focus. But whatever this is, should be the torpedo that sinks the ship. Now, what's interesting about him is we know, like, he's got tons of things to point to financial fraud. Like, everything he's touched has been financial fraud. We've got it documented. There's no surprises there. So it will be interesting what this could possibly be. So remember, Neptune also rules forgeries, duplications, imitations, and copies or copycats, like Xerox copies of things. So it is entirely possible that this is well above and beyond the tax games he's been playing. We may actually be looking at the possibility of forged documents. Forged documents or duplicated documents. Now, with people with a lot of money, we know there's always the possibility, especially if they're doing tax fraud, and we know they're also guilty of this, where they have two sets of books, the one that they present to the IRS and the one where they keep an accounting of the actual money in and out for their own edification, right? So for their own purposes. But two copies of the books, and one is forged or falsified, and the other is not. So, and we know that they've already done this. This is not new. But this, for whatever reason, if he's Virgo rising and Mercury is that chart ruler, with this new moon on it, this may very well suggest that these forged documents are huge, significantly huge, much bigger than having two sets of tax or accounting books, one for the IRS and one for your personal notes. So it would be interesting to see what that's about and if that's the case, right? Forged documents, falsified documents, documents that have literally been altered above and beyond, like in a much larger scale or a much more significant scale than he's already been found guilty of. So I can't even imagine what this is, obviously, because I don't do these sort of things, but it will be interesting to see if that's what it is. And if that is the case, this won't be good. Now, the other thing that's very important about this is that Neptune, that fraudulent Neptune, is also on the ascendant, right? So it's coming, that Mercury Neptune square in his natal chart is coming up extremely prominent with this new moon activating it for this emergency hearing. So, the thing about it is, even if he were Leo rising and Mercury was not a chart ruler, because this involves the second house, I would still go with forged documents, falsified documents, duplicates, right? Imitations, two copies of things, one accurate and one false. Literally, what is the word I'm looking for? Altered, physically altered documents, forged things, forged signatures. I would still look for that. And also, Neptune rules film and videography, so it's entirely possible that these are recorded communications of him speaking honestly when he didn't realize anybody was listening, or recording him, or videotaping him. So because Neptune rules film and theater and images, it rules video recordings and audio recordings. Mercury rules communications and the speech and words. So with Mercury square Neptune, he's not the most discreet person on the planet anyway. But with this coming up prominent with this new moon under the emergency hearing, there is the very distinct possibility that is something that's coming up as well. So there may be some recording or something of that nature that revealing things that he may have said himself that he did not think anybody heard or knew. Now, with 3 Libra rising on the chart for the emergency hearing, Venus rules the chart for the hearing itself. So we can get some information from that. Okay, so Venus is here. Venus is in Gemini. So it is entirely possible, and again, we're back to duplicates, right? Duplicates, forgeries, copies, imitations. Fraud, but fraud and deception in this case would be by almost sleight of hand, right? Misdirection, making you look one way when something else going on, having copies of things, right? Shell games. So with Venus ruling the chart and Venus at 6 Gemini, I think it's 6 Gemini, in the 9th house, Venus in this chart is also sextiling Jupiter, which should give them pretty good, strong position in terms of what they're dealing with or working with, right? Also, hold that thought. Also, this Venus, let me use a better color here. This Venus that rules the chart for the emergency hearing is setting up antecedent contra antecedent aspect with Venus and Saturn, which rules his money and his values, and also his stingy ass, his dysfunctional relationships, and his cruelty, and his selfishness, and all the ugliness that he doesn't think people see or that he doesn't want people to know about. So in this particular case, with the emergency hearings Venus involving his Venus Saturn, again, obviously money comes up. But my friends, this is what I think is possible as well. This may involve a woman. So there may be a woman who's bearing testimony or being a witness here. This could very specifically have to do with relationships. Now, we know he's had plenty of inappropriate relationships, many of them voluntary, I'm sure, and some of them pretty sketchy. But whatever this is, this may reveal relationships, or how he handles relationships, types of relationships he's involved himself in, that have been more than highly questionable. Hush money and stuff, all these things are normal for him. But there's something, if we're reading this chart correctly, there's something really, really wrong with this particular relationship or woman and the information she's bringing. There's something really, really wrong about what he's done, because it's his Venus and Saturn's getting hit. That's going to come to light. And So we'll see. We will see. I'm literally just kind of spitballing here. I can't even imagine. But what I will say is, again, if, and this is the only reason I'm doing this chart, because I don't want to talk about this man. If he is in fact 0 Virgo rising, that means Mercury is his chart ruler. And that means that this new moon sitting on his Mercury is the torpedo that sinks the ship. This Venus for the chart ruler of the emergency hearing, setting up antecedent contra antecedent aspect. It's involving his Venus and Saturn in a very subtle way. It's a very hidden aspect. Could also very much indicate that his relationships or his agreements with other people, especially if they've been wildly inappropriate, watch for that one, that may come to light as well. Boy, wouldn't that be funny if it were boyfriend that we're looking at, not a girlfriend? Oh my God, that would be unexpected. Ooh, can't imagine how that would go over. So there's that. Now, at the same time, just to finish up here, Mercury is conjunct Regal, the fixed star Regal, which has a lot to do with cleverness and humor and, getting it right. So this is going to be an interesting and important hearing. It'll be very entertaining for us. So I am looking forward to seeing what happens. And again, all of this is because we've got this super duper heavy, crazy emphasis on Mercury with that new moon. And it's all at the top of the chart. This is huge, huge. And if it is in fact his chart ruler, Mercury, because he is in fact 0 Virgo rising, man alive, this is going to be earth-shattering. So, or not, or he could be Leo rising and it just be like a little beep, little puff of smoke on the long train ride to where he's going with all of this. So we'll see. All right. Okay. I gotta go. I gotta get stuff done in the morning, and I can't look at this chart or him or think about him anymore. It's just been too much, just too much. But the good news, folks, is that if you were needing a little bit of entertainment, I'm telling you, the emergency hearing tomorrow is definitely going to bring it. And there is the very real possibility that there are some skunky secrets coming out of that closet that none of us were prepared for. I can't wait. So let's see what happens.